Ilya Rosanoff and Shane Hollander to the front immediately, or to the back. I guess. If it's Ilya, I'm sure that he'd be happy with that. I can't believe I just said that. Hi, you gigantic nerd. I'm Parker. Welcome to my vlog series called Discontent, a hyper-focused hellscape compilation. Anyway, Shane Hollander and Ilya fucking Rosanoff. Oh my god. All of it. Yeah, let's talk about it. There's so much. I've got neurons firing, synapses doing things that they've never done before, haven't done for a really, really long time. I've seen so many people, both in video, in comments, etc., through the beautiful erotic love language of edits, of fandom edits, talking about how Heated Rivalry is making them feel things that they haven't felt since they were younger, and I kind of want to talk about that. What the thing is that this story is doing that other stories and like media haven't done recently really is like, first of all, the story has matured with the base of readers that were excited about stories like this when we were younger. I think those of us who got to experience this like very like just obsessive like love for like media and like art, we had different standards when we were younger that maybe got us into fandom spaces, and then we kind of either stuck in fandom spaces or stuck to very like niche and specific pockets of media where things kind of went over a certain way and the tropes were kind of like known. I'm speaking specifically as somebody, I don't do a lot of like original story romance. I still read a lot of fan fiction. Lately I've been mainstream stuff for the most part really hasn't really been hitting, right? Like we do have Interview with the Vampire, we have Killing Eve, which I have not seen the last season of, probably not gonna watch it. We have either seen canon queer romantic media that is adapted on screen or like brought into the screen space and it has been defanged, or we are seeing stuff that's just kind of like not hitting, and so we kind of stick to the things that do serve us, that we do feel comfortable and good with. Back in the day, I was in a certain superhero franchises spaces like crazy. I would watch every single movie in theaters. I'd bring all of my friends, and there was a really big movie in that franchise, and I just don't think that did justice to the story and the characters, not even from a fandom perspective, but like from a canon, like the text and not the subtext, not the fanon text. It just kind of pulled me out of it. I lost faith in what was happening canonically, and I really just had to only operate in fandom space. I wanted to engage in media that did right by me as an audience and as a reader. Around the time that something big was happening that had a character that, you know, in the source material was like gender fluid and you know, pansexual or bisexual, and I was really, really excited for that as somebody who myself is gender fluid and pansexual, and I remember being so severely disappointed with the way that had been. To say it was adapted onto the screen would be untrue. I kind of just got really tired of grasping at straws with this like major like media whatever. I made a really big investment into my own just kind of like mental and emotional well-being and like just energy, that as an audience member I was going to prioritize stories that had canon queer characters, that had canon diversity, things that weren't handing us scraps but instead were like, this is the basis. I didn't want to engage in stuff anymore where it felt like I was constantly hoping to not be disappointed, but instead I was excited to suspend my disbelief and just kind of get lost in the show, right? I think when you're waiting to see the way that representation will fail you, that's not immersive for me. And a thing about me and my fiction, I'm really, really big on immersion. I'm really, really big on immersion. I usually only watch something one time, dim the lights, I completely immerse myself in the story, and then I'm done. And I pay as much attention to it and give as much as myself over to it, as I can, and then I'm done. Around that time, I got really, really invested into learning the history of queer media. I read a little bit about the Hays Code, as well as other influences on portrayals of diversity across different forms of media, but specifically TV and film. That kind of set a norm going forward and a tone going forward for the way that queer existence is portrayed in media. Which leads me to my next point. We're all used to like big media being something that, or popular media being something where we kind of have to fight tooth and nail for representation for. Y'all, and I'm not saying the fandom girls, gays, and theys. I'm not saying the book talk girls, gays, and theys. I'm not saying the BL girls, gays, and theys. This isn't about the Fujos. Y'all, as the wider vibes, you guys are not used to seeing queer characters that you cannot villainize on screen. You're not used to seeing queer characters that you do not mourn on a screen. For us in this very niche specific pocket of like media and representation and this and that, representation is the basis.
Hi, Editor Parker here. I didn't love the way that I phrased my original thought, so what I meant to say was that the identities of the characters were context that further allows the plot to be enriched and develop with certain nuances that wouldn't be there if they were maybe traditionally more of like a default set of identities.
Personally, again, I am uninterested in seeing media that makes me feel othered and makes me feel like I should be content with begging for scrap. Yeah, you guys aren't used to seeing a pocket of media where where you're not seeing characters, diverse characters, struggle, or like grieving, or die as the epicenter of their being. I'm seeing people who aren't used to this particular pocket of media be in comment sections or making videos where they're wildly misinterpreting the narrative, the internal workings of the characters. And mind you, I haven't read the books. Am I going to read the books? Yes, I ordered it, I paid for it, it's on back order, I'm awaiting eagerly, but I haven't read the books. And as somebody who hasn't read the books, but is still in these like spaces in media where like the digging into every single like look and glance and motif and metaphor is not only necessary but encouraged, right? In a way that in like large media right now, it's having kind of the opposite effect on the media literacy of like folks on a broader view.
Even as somebody who has not read the books, it is so glaringly obvious that there is nuance and that there is subtext, especially given the acting decisions. I've rewatched the series multiple times, more times than I've ever watched any other television series, and I'm still noticing things about their acting choices and what went into that. If you allow yourself to trust and to lean into engaging and really investigating and scrutinizing the media that's in front of you, the nuance becomes very clear, and I think the subtext becomes very clear. And it's not a question of understanding every single thing that you're seeing. Sometimes with media, I would argue very often times with media, not understanding what's going on and thinking more about what's going on and what things could possibly mean is the point. That's the point. The curiosity being incited in you and your ability and willingness to engage in that curiosity is the point. I need to calm down. I'm an adult. Oh my god. I need to calm down. I'm an adult. This is an adult conversation. Back to the video.
What we're seeing right now is folks who are not used to engaging with having to do the work and enjoying and taking joy within that work, engage with a very large story now. Yay, season 2 confirmed. That demands that you do that work, that encourages you to do that work, right? Folks that are used to more popular media that doesn't necessarily have the identities as a point that adds drama, but ultimately like the story's about something else, or the story is about that thing, but not in a way that feels reductive. You know, we're seeing folks have to do that work. We're seeing folks have to be confronted with enthusiastically literate spaces in this specific genre, and also, you know, fandom spaces in this specific genre where you can go directly to the author, who will tell you when Shane does this thing or says this thing in this way, that means this, or analyze this further, or when Ilya does this, that really means this, exactly, and because of his character, all of this is happening internally, so you kind of have to do the work to figure it out. I saw somebody comment on TikTok yesterday who was like, oh my god, this is making me realize I need to be paying more attention to the things that I'm watching. Honestly, super scary sentence, but like, girl, yes, absolutely, you should be paying attention, right? Writers, creatives, artists, they spend entire like years sometimes of their lives trying to say one specific thing. Yes, dude, the drapes are not just blue. The wall is not just yellow. These things have meaning. And even if the drapes are just blue and the yellow is and the walls are just yellow, that in and of itself has a meaning. It's literally never just this thing exists for no reason. Traditionally within media. And I think, again, as things have gotten a lot more widespread, there is a level of like content that I have seen with folks just like looking at things without being trusted by the folks who are creating the stuff to like really like dive into the material. If all people are consuming are stories that aren't really challenging them or making them even consider the fact that they might have to think about that and it's just being spoon-fed, then they're probably going to accept being spoon-fed. Anyway, that's just, you know, the rise of anti-intellectualism within the Western part of the world, but whatever. Heated Rivalry, absolutely incredible. I'm on episode 4 right now. My birthday is next Thursday and I'm staying up late to watch episode 5. Happy birthday to me. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Hudson. Thank you, Connor. Thank you, Rachel, and every single other person. Birthday present for Parker. This show makes me sick. This show makes me want to like... The reason why people who are so excited about this show isn't necessarily because... It's just... The show is good and it matured with the audience that like 15 years ago would have been super, super into it as well, right? It feels like all of the tropes that I love have been brought onto screen and I am being trusted to do the work as an audience member, as a participant, as a viewer, as a reader, to not be spoon-fed, but instead to engage with the media and think about why would this happen? You know, what's not happening that they want to happen? What's not being said? And they were both boys. Anyway, I love Heated Rivalry. I love the way that it feels to be able to watch something so wonderful and platformed in such a spectacular way, and played by such talented, incredible actors as well. It's wonderful to be able to watch something that has all the tropes that I love. It feels wonderful to watch that on screen. Reading that is like reading the kind of like creme de la creme fan fiction that I've read before. It's like reading the best kind of like original stories that I've read before. Some of that is because of the tropes and stuff. It's stuff that I enjoy personally, but also some of it's just because it's like, it's allowing me to do the work of an audience. Like, I don't necessarily want something where it's completely passive. I want to be engaged. I want to be, you know, like able to like sit up and really pay attention and like notice a different detail because the actors are like putting so much nuance into the characters. I think what the show says, or the show tells me, or the success of the show tells me, by the way, because it's been, as of right now, this is only the 3rd week that it's been out. It is a Friday. It was released technically today, but like really it was released Thursday night. If you stay up late enough, which I shouldn't be doing, but I do anyway, because this means something to me. You know, I think about the success of Sinners earlier this year, and I think about the success of Heated Rivalry, and I saw something yesterday about Jacob Tierney like really like fighting for the show to not have all of these like big changes that we usually see in adaptations, and I think specifically about the success with this show being so successful because it didn't have all of those changes that we usually see with adaptations that make things more vaguely inspired by than actually adapted into. And like, I'm content to like be in my fandom space, consume media that like understands and gets me, and engage with media that doesn't, but only under the condition that it allows me to do the work of trying to understand it. I'm gonna talk business right now. There is so much money being left on the table by consistently numbing the bite and the specificity of the human experience portrayed and like investigated in so many different kinds of media when it translates into like a bigger screen. The reason why the girls, the gays and the theys are going so crazy about this show is because we're seeing tropes that we love, that we know that we love in media, that we've been proven to love in media, that most of the time for low cost or free we get to just engage with. We're seeing those things translated in a really, really good way. I can tell you right now, if the story had changed in like some major way, I genuinely don't believe it would be having the same amount of success, because it wouldn't be made for the audience that loves it. And the audience that loves it is pretty big, When I think about Heated Rivalry and Sinners, right? Sinners was an original script, shout out to Ryan Coogler. Heated Rivalry was, a book that turned into a TV show. But both of those things have, again, like diversity as the basis for the story that adds to, where the identities of the character add to the drama, but are not things that people need to like fight for or like mourn, right? Like Sinners, the entirety of Sinners, which is, I will stand by, I won't die on the hill because there's nothing to die, like, because I'm not gonna die, I'm not wrong. Sinners is the best vampire film ever made, period. Better than Dracula, better than, you know, like, Lost Boys, better than Nosferatu, better than just, I've seen all of these things and I love these things, and before this year I would have had a very different answer, but before this year I hadn't seen Sinners. The identities of the characters within Sinners is something that allows the plot to move forward. It's not something that is wrestling with the plot for attention, and it's not something that is just like thrown in for flavor, and then the nuance of that flavor is left up to the actor trying to portray a performance through fighting with a script, right? Like I think we sometimes often see when it comes to like Black characters of color, etc. The thing that I'm seeing with both of these is that when we, one, allow the audience to like do the work and engage in something without dumbing it down, the audience responds very positively, and two, I think we're just in a space right now where people would rather not fight and stick to and give their money to things that they know will represent them properly, even if it's a small community, than, you know, the opposite, right? Art has time and time again proven that the more specific you get with a story, because it gets more acute into the human experience, or aspects of the human experience, the more people get to enjoy it. And the more people actually like flock to it and respond to it and engage with that. And I think like the thing that I haven't been seeing in a lot of popular media recently has been that specificity, has been that conversation with the audience, has been it's instead been the opposite of getting as broad as you possibly can with subject matter to try to appeal to as many people as possible. But like maybe that'll be good for like a passive watch, but the longevity of that is hilarious in that it is non-existent, right? I'm not going to return to something that's like, I was like, okay, cool, they use these tropes XYZ. That's another thing also with like queer baiting and stuff like that. I've seen a lot of people talking about other fandoms like sweating and being real quiet since Heated Rivalry dropped because like they've been like breadcrumbing people with queer bait. And Heated Rivalry episode 1, minute 1 was just very, very like queer. The entirety of the story is queer. And I think that's great. I think that folks should be sweating because, I mean, how long are we going to be like, I think that there's only so much, if we're talking about money, I think that there's only so much money that folks are willing to lose by just like having everything so spread out. Again, the yaoi cocaine is crazy, so this is also the part where I'm going to talk about like fan stuff. I also specifically would like to, okay, so fans, fans, talking to you. Hi besties. I think Heated Rivalry is going to have a really, really large impact on media, on TV and media. I think also, you know, it'll have its own like ripples through society again, like with the brain bashing against like walls that's happening right now between folks that are consuming media that does not challenge them versus folks that enthusiastically only consume media that really challenges them and gives them a happy ending, which again, y'all aren't used to seeing queer people with happy endings. This is why sidebar, I've seen so many people day one villainizing Ilya. That's crazy. I haven't read the books and I can tell that boy's depressed. That is PTSD city. PTSD city. And then all of the little breadcrumbs that I hear and like read about from the books. Can we please? That boy has gone through trauma. He is dissociating. I swear he's not being a bitch, he's dissociating. Do I relate? Maybe a little bit, but that's besides the point. And also I've seen people being like, oh, this is why I'm Team Shane over Team Ilya. There's no teams, they're in love with each other. This is the thing. Okay, I got my energy back. This is the thing. Y'all aren't used to seeing happy ending, confirmed, canon queer, diverse characters on a screen who get to without being, you guys aren't used to, also, right, people villainizing Svetlana, people villainizing Rose. You guys aren't used to seeing queer characters who get to kiss and have happy endings and also be three-dimensional, and women who are like, you know, beautiful. And in the story, you guys aren't used to seeing all of that without either not villainizing the women, not villainizing one of the love interests, not infantilizing one of the love interests, not seeing, like, you know, like they can be nuanced and correct in their behaviors and their emotional responses and have those be valid. And then the point of the story is that they work through them. That's what makes it compelling, is that there is a challenge that is worked through, right? It's not that we're, you know, fighting for XYZZYX. It's that these are people and they have backgrounds and they have identities, and that is the drama pulls from the identities, but the identities do not pull away from the story. It's entwined. And people aren't used to not see it. Team Shane, Team Ilya, they're team each other, first of all. That's like trying to be like, oh, is Dan, like, are you Team Dan or Team Phil? Team Dan or Team Phil? Team Dan or Team Phil. They're on each other's teams. Trying to separate makes absolutely no sense, right? Nobody here is the bad guy. It's okay to be like, hey, I don't like the way that this was handled, or this character was like really like in the wrong or whatever, while also holding space for, hey, this is a nuanced situation. This character was feeling this. They did this as a result of that. It did hurt that character, but I'm excited to see how they repair this and how the repair happens. For me, that's part of the thing that I love the most. I'm like, little, not even miscommunication, but like a little sauce of like, how are they going to repair this and get to the happy ending? It's not, is there going to be a happy ending, or is my favorite character about to die, and if so, what way? It's how are they going to, taking from the identities and taking from the trauma and taking from the miscommunication and misunderstanding, how are they going to get to the happy ending? That's what's compelling to me. So many conversations are needed about media literacy, because it's okay to be like, hey, I don't like the shame that I don't like the shame. It's crazy. It's okay to be like, hey, I don't like the way that this was handled, or this character was like really like in the wrong, but also holding space for, hey, this is a nuanced situation. This character was feeling this. They did this as a result of that. It did hurt that character, but
the rest of what I say in this clip actually doesn't matter, because when I get excited, I just kind of like repeat things in like a dozen different ways. What I will say though is this. Let me cook. This will be the last editor's note. There is a culture that has been reinforced through the dropping rates of media literacy of projection over empathy. Mind you, fiction, right? Characters are supposed to be projected onto. That is the point of fiction, right? That is one of the major points. When I see refusal from real people to acknowledge the nuance of situations and acknowledge sometimes it's not like a somebody is right or somebody's wrong or someone's the villain, but instead approach things from a place of like understanding and acceptance that sometimes circumstances just are bad. That to me is hand in hand with what I have noticed in my actual outside of the internet communities that touch grass together. The fortification of this system of apathy and projection with people over empathy, that trend of the refusal to acknowledge nuanced situations in fiction is very, very, very often met with a actualized, nonfiction, real life refusal to take self-accountability and to approach real situations and real conflict between people and within communities with empathy and understanding and nuance. And yes, it is that serious. That's the whole point.
much like in the show, it is not the fault of an individual person, right? It's the fault of Hockey League and the culture, right? And also, like, for all that it's literally been, what, like 15 years, whatever. Yeah, 2011 was a different time. 2008, different time. 2013, 14, different time. Real different time. As I was saying though, this is specifically for the book talk, fandom, girls, gays, theys, fujos, etc. We're going to see a major shift in the next couple years, because Heated Rivalry, I'm saying this, I'm projecting it, but like so many, as somebody with the intersection of identities that I have, I've seen this happen time and time again. We're going to see canonic queer stories and dramas blow up in a way that I personally wasn't expecting to witness in my lifetime. I didn't even think to consider that. I'm excited for it, but it is going to be, I'm sure, it's going to be a little frustrating, because the more that something that is niche and sort of a subculture is dragged into the main stage. And also, again, congratulations on the success of everybody in the show. This has nothing to do with them. Well, it does, but like what I'm saying has nothing to do with them. While I love that and I love the success that it's getting, it also does mean that there's going to be a shift in the way that new folks engage with this new culture and the show as a jumping off point, and it's going to be a lot harder to culture keep in the way that we usually do. In terms of like fan fiction spaces, we experienced this a lot in the last like 5 years, especially with COVID. There's so much there's so many new folks, especially newer, younger folks who haven't been around or like don't really know the courtesies of being in these subcultures. And that's going to happen again. And then it's going to go underground and people are going to be like, those stories aren't popular anymore. Meanwhile, they just got underground, etc., etc., etc. I'm excited. Watch Heated Rivalry. Super excited for season 2. Jacob Tierney and the casting agent, if you guys need somebody who's 5'2" and can travel to Canada at a moment's notice, let me know. I'm adorable. Let me be a background character or a front round character. I have acting experience. Anyway, bye! Also, I went to see LCD Sound System last night. Does that date the video? Maybe. Personally, I can't be